still is cheap. But also a lot of people just made their own bread. So yesterday I made this bread. We've got a great easy recipe. You can make it in the Dutch oven. All you need, flour, a little salt, water, and yeast. But using bread is really how you stretched your meal and made people full. These next recipes are kind of 2 for 1. I'm gonna do both at the same time. And one of them was one of the first things I learned to cook. So I'm doing creamed chipped beef, otherwise known as on a shingle. The other one is called hard times tuna or cream tuna or tuna on toast, which I happen to love. And I'm not lying when I say I had it for lunch yesterday. So you want this to be toasted while you make everything else. Dried beef. Again, a little bit goes a long way. And chop it up finely, and then we're just making like a white gravy. And then I do my tuna a little bit different. Let me show you. So the first one is probably the way you're most familiar with. You make a roux first, melt the butter with a little flour, equal parts. Cook that down a little bit and then whisk in your milk. You can always add more. You'll know how thick your gravy's gonna be once it starts to simmer again. But I like to just kind of gradually add it in while whisking. In this pot, this is one of the first recipes I learned to make. And instead of flour, I'm gonna use cornstarch. There used to be a recipe when this stuff came in a box on the side, and it was just called medium white sauce. And my mom, whenever I decided I wanted to start cooking, she's like, oh, you can make this. Follow this recipe, and then we'll serve it with tuna and toast. And I crave it. It's so good. I'm gonna go ahead and add some cold milk to your saucepan, and then you're gonna wanna whisk in your cornstarch while it's cold, because cornstarch is different than flour. So it needs to dissolve in cold liquid first. And then I go ahead and add my butter in, and the butter kind of melts into it as it comes up to a simmer. So same ingredients, basically, just a little different procedure. All right, so it's rich and creamy. Now I'm gonna stir in the beef. The beef is gonna act as our salt, and for a little kick, a little cayenne pepper. Creamed chipped beef, ready to go. You don't need to add salt. Keep that warm there while we finish this one. And you'll just see the butter start to gradually melt into the milk, and then the whole thing will start to thicken together. This one you will season with salt and pepper. Just the most simple white gravy. Gonna serve up the tuna first, toast, then the tuna, straight from the can. You could just stir it in like the beef, but this is just the way I always used to do it. And then you just pour your sauce right on top. The bread soaks up this gravy, and it's a knife and fork situation at this point. I love it. If you like things like tuna noodle casserole, you're gonna love this. There's really, I mean, there's nothing not to like. Now, how about a little SOS, as they say? The toast being the shingle, you know? I already can tell you what's not to like. Well, that's a perfect bite. It just like happened so easily. That one is really rich. While you might think like canned tuna is a strong flavor, the flavor here is a little bit stronger, so you could get by with just using a little bit of that dried beef, because the flavor is pretty intense. Strong in a good way, but it makes me kind of want like a glass of wine to kind of cut through that richness, you know? After dinner, you always want a little something sweet, so I'm bringing you 2 Depression-era desserts, starting with the most mind-blowing. We're making water pie, and it actually has flavor in it. You won't believe it. So you take your water and you pour it directly into the crust. Then mix together some flour and sugar. This is going to thicken the water. Then you sprinkle this over the water. You don't stir it in. You just trust the process. Can you imagine being the inventor of this? Put in a little vanilla, and then you place 5 pats of butter on top. It's 5 tablespoons of butter, but it has to be in 5 pieces, not 6 or 7. 6. And you tell I have a middle schooler? My gosh. I'm gonna place this on a baking sheet just for insurance, and then it just bakes at 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. All right, water pie is boiling like water does. I know, you're not thinking it's gonna work, but what has happened is that that flour and sugar mixture has cooked. So it's basically like if we cooked that mixture on the stove and it comes to a boil, it's gonna thicken, but now as it cools, it's going to firm up, and then it will become sliceable. So this has to cool like for hours, like completely. It's perfectly sweet. It doesn't have like its own specific flavor, like it's not lemon or strawberry, but if you added just like even a garnish of that, it would take that on. And then the little buttery goodness that sits on top, but also in the crust, it just balances it out. It's rich, but also sweet, but also light. I got one more final trick. Have you ever heard of wacky cake? This is a recipe. We have at All Recipes. It is known to have been created during the Depression. And I like the description of this recipe. It is the brainchild of the Depression era when ingenious cooks developed a cake that could be made without expensive and scarce ingredients. So without butter, and this also has no eggs in it. Okay, so I'm gonna whisk together the dry ingredients, which is just a little bit of flour and some sugar, some cocoa powder, and baking soda we know is one of the few things that's still very inexpensive. Always a little salt when you're baking things that are sweet. All right, give that a whisk. It says to sift it, but I just never do. I never do. I'm a rebel like that. Then it says to make 3 depressions into this flour mixture. Into one of them, we're gonna put oil. So always just like whatever the inexpensive oil was. And then apple cider vinegar into another one. This is somehow, some way, if you understand chemistry, can replace the egg part in here. Don't ask me how, I don't know. And then a little vanilla extract into the third. Now we pour water over the whole thing. Now you stir it together with a fork. Oh, do you know you don't even have to dirty a bowl for this recipe? You're just supposed to mix it all in the pan. It did say to put it in an ungreased baking pan, but you can see how it's kind of bubbling already. The egg is normally one of the leavening agents. So the combo of vinegar and baking soda together is doing that. It's so easy. You bake it at 350 for about 30 minutes, 30 to 40. It's wacky, but it works. Of course, you're gonna wanna let it cool a bit, but that is probably one of the easiest chocolate cakes, or cakes period, that I've ever made. You should really wait longer, but let's not rush it. It looks and feels like super moist. You could make like a glaze or an icing for this, but I'm just gonna keep it simple. I mean, it's so tender. That's delicious. It has great chocolate flavor. It's not overwhelmingly rich and chocolatey, but like it's perfectly chocolate. I don't know. I like how it kind of formed a little like sugary crust along the top. It might be wacky in its prep method, but nothing wacky about the taste. The Fritos corn salad.